Hatchbacks still remain one of the biggest selling cars in the Indian market. While many other body styles have become increasingly popular, like SUVs for instance, but for a majority of Indian customers, a hatchback is still the preferred choice. And things in the premium hatchback segment really began to heat up at the Auto Expo with the launch of the facelifted Hyundai i20 and the third generation Maruti Suzuki Swift. With its updated and dare I say rather good design, the Swift offers a stylish, fun-to-drive option. It's got some great design highlights like the big front grille, the floating roof, and rather beautifully executed C-pillar with the integrated rear door handle. But with an equally good design and a more mature and luxury feel, the i20 stands out for itself too. It's got a new tailgate design as well as new front and rear bumpers. Both the cars are now priced within shooting range of each other, so we thought comparing the two would make for a great story.
You can tell how important the i20, especially in Elite form, has become for Hyundai. Just this generation of the car, pre-facelift, Hyundai has managed to sell almost 4 lakh units since its launch, only in India. So, I mean, that tells you more than you need to know about how important the i20 is as a product in the Hyundai lineup. And once you look at it, it's easy to see why. The quality standards in the car, the number of features are simply fantastic. I mean, the fit and finish, the refinement is something that's probably class leading right now. What we are driving today is the 1.4 diesel, only available with a 6-speed manual. What they've learned from the new Verna and what Hyundai officially says and what I can certify is that they've worked on the ride and handling. The steering, which was a weak point of the old i20, is actually pretty good now. I mean, sure, there's always slight room for improvement, but it's very good. It works well. There's a decent amount of feel. It's more direct. The car rides very well. Refinement, as I said earlier, is excellent. The 1.4 diesel is very linear, you know. That works to its advantage, and there's a slight disadvantage. I'll come to both. The linearity means there's virtually no turbo lag, so you can drive it around in heavy traffic, on highways, and it's just picks up pace. It's fairly, strong. It doesn't stand out as a true driver's engine, and honestly, the i20 is not a driver's car, but you can't fault the car at all when it comes to refinement, power delivery. Now the ride and handling is very good, the steering is improved, quality and the features are phenomenal. Now the new one has slightly updated styling. They had a very plain hatchback gate in the last gen car, or rather the pre-facelift car. Now they've given it, the number plate is there, the tail lights are slightly changed. It's a slightly more busier look. Some like it, some don't. I actually think it looks pretty good. It's got new sets of alloys, slight changes to the front grille too, minor changes to the interiors. The navigation plus multimedia system is new. Overall, I think the Hyundai as a quality product, as a refined product, as something you can use every day is simply fantastic. And as far as quality and features are concerned, it has the Swift beat. But it's slightly more expensive than the Swift, and it doesn't have a diesel automatic option, which I think stands out like a sore thumb. I think that's something Hyundai should definitely work on. Compared to the Hyundai i20, the Maruti Suzuki Swift is a completely different sort of an animal. Also very successful for the brand. Since they launched the Swift in India, they've managed to sell over 1.8 million units. That's a lot of cars. Even for Maruti, that's a lot of cars. And it's become a brand name of its own, probably because this was one of the first properly fun to drive Maruti Suzuki cars. The new one also has the stylish looks. It's an evolution of the last gen car, but I think it's a pretty funky looking design. It stands out. I love the red color that we are driving. And I quite like the C-pillar treatment with the rear door handle integrated into it. It's quirky, it's fun, it gives the car its separate identity. It's also slightly more youthful than the i20 would be. But you can see the changes, you can see the differences when you drive the Swift. The quality is a big improvement from the last generation car. But compared to the i20, it's still in places, it still lacks that finesse. The plastic could be slightly better. And the features, well, Maruti's improved the features list, but it's still not as comprehensive. The diesel automatic that we are driving gets with the smaller non-touchscreen stereo system. It doesn't have a rear view camera, which for a car of its cost is slightly disappointing. What works for the Swift though, that it still retains its fun to drive character. It's fun to throw around. It's got that same 1.3 diesel engine that works quite well. The AMT works fairly well. I think this is probably the best AMT that Maruti has done till now. It's still better if you lift up on upshifts. But I mean, given our traffic, I would mostly rather drive an AMT in city than any manual. And coming from a lifelong petrol head, that's some statement. Other than that, I mean, the Swift's got more room than the previous generation car. It's still a bit smaller than the i20 though. But I think these are two different animals that way. The Swift is slightly more fun to drive, slightly more chuckable, and slightly more stylish in a more sporty, younger kind of a way. The i20, on the other hand, is a bit more premium, a bit more luxury, and maybe a little bit more grown up. The suspension of the Swift is quite well set up. Even the last one was pretty good. The steering is really good. And overall, I think it's a really good fun to drive car. So choosing between the two, that's going to be a tough one.
This comparison between the Swift and the i20 turned out to be a much tougher fight than I thought. Ultimately, it was not a straight-up apple-to-apple comparison, but rather more a decision based on which kind of car you like to drive. So if you like to make a bold style statement and prefer a car based more on its driving feel, but at the cost of a little bit of quality and features, the Swift is fantastic at what it does, especially since it's more affordable than the i20. But if you focus more on refinement, quality and features at the expense of a better driving appeal, and are also prepared to pay more for it, the i20 it is. And despite my best efforts to make them sound like arch rivals, turns out that the Swift and the i20 are quite different in character. However, both make for fantastic choices in their own way, and you can't go wrong with either. So for once, I can't pronounce either one a winner, since both cars are winners in their own right.